So, last year I talked about Avatar and said that it was a fun but very flawed movie that I would have appreciated more if I saw it back in 2009. But I still found myself enjoying it somewhat. Avatar: The Way of Water, on the other hand, was a different story. Some of those same praises I gave the first film still apply here, but man, this was just something else entirely. Taking place 16 years after the original movie, Jake and Neytiri have settled down and started a family with 2 sons, a daughter, an adopted daughter, and an adopted human boy named Spider. And for the most part, they just live their lives on Pandora as happily as can be. That is until the return of the Sky People, with new intentions on strip mining the Na'vi's world and making it into a new home for humanity. Why they would choose a world where they can't breathe the air? I do not know. And after a brief scuffle in which their kids are taken hostage and Spider is whisked away, they go into self-exile to keep their tribe safe and seek refuge with the Sea People, where Jake once again has to relearn the ways of the natives, the children have to find a way to fit in, Spider must make a choice between his found family or the humans that found him, all while being hunted down by a clone of their old enemy, Quaritch, now in a Na'vi body. Where do I begin? I actually enjoyed the beginning of the movie quite a bit. It reminded me of a direct-to-video movie somewhat, and I mean that in the best possible way. Kind of like Lion King 1.5. It ain't the first film, but it was building up to be a fun adventure in a kind of dumb, fun way. And then we get to the ocean, and that's where things quickly go downhill. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the way the ocean looks, and the world building is just as good as it was in the first film. From the new life forms and how the spirit tree actually functions. I even like the idea of introducing new tribes of Na'vi. It adds new factions and lore to the species, and it's interesting to think that there are multiple subspecies of the same people. But then you've got everything else. Let's just get the Tolkien out of the room. Once we get to the sea, the story is a huge retread of the first film, except with far more padding slapped onto it. It honestly feels like it wants to recapture what the first film did, but failing to understand why the things people liked about it worked in the first place. And I'm just going to say it. And I'm definitely not the first one to say it, but there are way too many characters. Took does nothing, Kiri could be interesting on paper, but not enough time is dedicated to her. The older and younger brothers are honestly really forgettable. I like the idea of Spider, but nothing is really done with him. I don't remember the name of the water kids, the chieftain, or his wife. I could give less of a crud about the Tolkien. Okay, you know what? Scratch that. I did enjoy the parts where it was basically alien Free Willy. But that's really it. And a lot of things are just so forced. Like Grace somehow having a daughter despite, her never having a romance in the first film. There's the whole thing about Spider being Quaritch's son. Jake leaving the Forest tribe and basically dragging his problems to the Water tribe. And of course, the return of Quaritch, a character who died in the last film, and it was never established he had an avatar body to be uploaded into. And unlike the first film, where I liked him as the traditional irredeemable monster of a villain, here, he has none of that energy or presence. I didn't find him as intimidating, I didn't find him as fun to watch. He was, if I'm being honest, just kind of boring. And I'm sorry, the army battle does not feel as grand as the first film's climactic fight, even though it clearly wants to be. and I was just ready for it to end when we got to the sinking whaling ship, which also went on way too long. And if I'm being honest, I wished they implemented both tribes instead of just ditching one for the other. Maybe it could have been like, in order to unite all of Pandora, they have to trade their members for others and learn their ways or something. That'd be interesting. Which gets to my biggest point of contention. I feel like you could cut this film down and get ideas for 5 better movies than the one we got. But as is, I think the critical drinker was right. This movie simply embodies the best and worst aspects of James Cameron. In the end, I can only give this thing a 5 out of 10. If I did get anything of long-lasting value out of it, it was a bigger appreciation for the first film. And if I'm being honest, I would rather go back to that before returning to this much longer, dare I say it, watered down version. And I recommend you do the same. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Undead Sonic 89 for his courteous $30 pledge on Patreon. Through his support, both this channel and my second one can keep making bigger and better projects. Thank you tremendously for your support.